Hey guys, so I have a couple of things planned. I do have one other video planned for today, but I decided to go ahead and do the series on working with Kokopelli. Basically, I can't formulate words for how I work with this particular deity other than telling you guys my experiences with him, because it's different. The way that I work with him it changes from day to day. One day I will work with him through a meditation. The next day I will work with him through the learning process of my violin. The next day I will work with him through some kind of ceremony, whether it's, you know, cleaning my altar or even doing my laundry. You know, I'm constantly in contact with him, but the way that I actually work with him varies from day to day. So really the only way that I can explain how I work with him is to tell you guys my experiences. So I do have a few for this video. I'm going to try to keep it short because it's the end of December. We've got about 3 feet of snow outside, and I really don't feel very good, but I don't want to keep putting this off and then not do it because I'm a horrible procrastinator, which is something that Kokopelli is actually working with me on, is not intentionally avoiding responsibilities and goals that I have set for myself. So one instance in particular, it actually has to do with my violin. It was about 3 weeks ago. I had noticed that the strings on my instrument were not good anymore, but they were nice, expensive strings, and at that point I didn't have the money to replace those nice, expensive strings. But I loved them so much, I was so attached to them, that I was afraid to try anything else in the cheaper range of strings, because I had tried Deity preludes and I hated them. Like, absolutely hated them. Because I do have a cheaper violin, definitely student grade, so with cheap strings, she sounds like a fiddle, not a violin, and I hate that sound. So, you know, I kept putting it off and putting it off because I didn't want to have to put cheap strings on my instrument. And so I'm sitting at my desk one night, and, you know, I'm doing some journal work. I believe I had pulled a couple of cards, and I got a very distinct poke in the back of my head. And so, of course, you know, I responded like, yeah, what do you want? What do you need to tell me? And I got a very distinctive, you need to put new strings on your instrument, like, right now. You need to go up to the music store and get new strings. And, like, do it tonight. This was the night before I had a lesson, mind you, so I was a little nervous about putting new strings on my instrument and then going to my lesson the next day and having my teacher think that I didn't practice at all because the strings would go out of tune super fast. But, you know, Kokopelli was so insistent. I sat there for like an hour arguing with him about how I just didn't have the money. I pointed out that, you know, I didn't want my teacher to think I didn't practice. And he just insisted, no, you need to do it. You need to do it. You need to do it. Go do it right now. Go. Get off your butt and go do it. Quit procrastinating. Go do it. And so I get out there, and of course they only have like 4 or 5 different brands on the shelf. And one of them was the one that was the set that I used, and they were like $80. I said, I can't afford that. Like, that's way too much right now. I cannot afford that. And I'm not kidding, guys. There is a set of strings that my teacher actually recommended that I get, and they were on the shelf, and there was one set left, and they fell off the shelf. Like, so that was my indicator to try the strings that my teacher recommended. And so I got them home and changed the strings. These strings were about $30 as opposed to $80, by the way. So much, much more budget friendly. And the first thing that I noticed was how clear the tone was. It was almost like when you get a really nice silver bell. Like, I have one on my altar that has this beautiful, very clear chiming sound. And that was the first thing that I noticed about these strings, was how clear the tone was. How sweet it was without being fiddle-like. The next thing that I noticed was how much easier it was to change the volume of what I was playing, to play around with dynamics. And so, of course, Kokopelli's, just sitting there like, I told you you needed new strings. Thank you for actually listening to me for once, And so I go to my lesson the next day, and the first thing I told my teacher was, I just put these strings on, so if I am playing out of tune, that's part of the problem. Like, I am so sorry. And he got really excited because he recognized the strings. He was excited. They were the ones that he had recommended. And then he told me that lesson we were going to work on dynamics. That was the lesson he had planned for me. And so it was just kind of like a God wink sort of thing from my trickster deity, where he basically set me up. Like, he got me all set up for this one particular lesson, and that was actually one of the funnest weeks, like, practice-wise, that I have ever experienced. Playing around with dynamics is so much fun, guys. But, yeah, another little God wink, in that same lesson, my teacher noticed my medicine wheel tattoo for the first time and asked me what it was. And after I told him, he in turn told me about this incredible walk that he took through a series of caves down in, like, New Mexico. And how he, just describing all of these cave paintings that he saw. And I'm not exactly upfront when I meet somebody. I'm not exactly upfront about my spiritual path and my personal beliefs. And so I had never once mentioned to my teacher that I am pagan, that I work with Kokopelli, anything like that. Excuse me. And my teacher tells me that his favorite cave painting on that entire tour was Kokopelli, patron of musicians. That was exactly how he said it. And it felt like it was very much a synchronistic moment where a couple of puzzle pieces just kind of fell and locked into place. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in a previous video, but I was actually guided to this teacher by a friend that I went to school with years and years and years ago. But I've been friends with him since like 6th grade. So we've been friends for about 16 years. And he guided me to this teacher who in turn is guiding me on this path that Kokopelli has set before me. And it's just this, I was blown away in that lesson and just totally in awe of my teacher, of my God, and of my own willingness to actually listen to this deity that I had been avoiding for 6 years. And it was just an awesome moment. You know, working with a trickster god, it can be very difficult. Like I said in a previous video. But at the same time, it can be so rewarding. The main thing is you have to be willing to listen, and you have to be willing to have a sense of humor. Be able to find the silver lining, the joy, find something to laugh at in a situation that doesn't go the way you wanted it to. And, you know, it's a difficult energy to work with, but it's also one of the most rewarding energies to work with. So another Kokopelli aside here, on the day of Yule, or the winter solstice as I prefer to call it, I am a very strange pagan in that I do not celebrate the 8 Sabbats. I celebrate the equinoxes and the solstices, and that's pretty much it. Depending on how I am feeling and, you know, just the general general energies at the time, I might do set up an ancestral altar for Samhain, but I actually haven't done that for a couple of years just because I haven't felt the need to. I carry my ancestors with me all the time, in my jewelry, in my violin case, in my, you know, travel altar, everything. I carry them with me all the time, not just at this one specific time of the year. So basically I celebrate the change of the seasons. And I celebrate the moon cycles and just all of that fun stuff. So winter solstice this year was very, very important. Kokopelli actually sent me into the woods, a walking trail. I mentioned this in my last video, but he sent me to a local walking trail that is a power place for me. And his intention, he told me, he wanted me to gather stones, just raw stones like granite, lava rock, basically any of the natural stone that would be out there, to build a medicine wheel for meditation and for ritual work and for ceremonial work, for prayer work, basically anything. Like when I make my incense smudges, I have one for my moon time every month. I have one for the solstices and equinoxes. I have one for just basic cleansing and any kind of thing like that. You know, it was meant to be a designated area for me to harvest and manipulate energies for pretty much any purpose. Because a medicine wheel laid out like that is basically a portal. That's how he explained it to me. And I had always kind of known what it was, but having your deity just delve that little bit deeper into it to explain, hey, I need you to do this and this is why. It's eye-opening. So I found myself incapable of doing a video after that experience because I was just so in awe of the overall experience that I had. was a couple years ago. I met that guy that I told you guys he hurt me pretty bad. And we had actually gone up to that trail a couple of times. And the last time that we were up there, there's a spot in the trail where 2 trees have fallen over, and they, like, their branches have interconnected to make a, like this in the middle of the trail. So when you walk through it, it's kind of like walking through a gate. And that's actually what it feels like, is you're walking through a gateway. And Kokopelli had me retrace my steps, had me go through the section of that trail that me and this guy had walked through the last time that I was up there with him. And I don't know if it was the park that did it, or if it was irresponsible people just walking out on the trail, but the whole way that I walked, every step that I took, there were black spots all along the trail. The ground had been burnt. And, you know, I asked Kokopelli, I'm like, why would you have me walk on this portion of the trail when it's all blackened? Like, I understand it's cold out, so there's really no green anywhere, but, like, why have me walk on this blackened part of the trail? Like, how am I supposed to find crystals in ash? And he gave me one of those, you know, silent, just kind of, you'll figure it out. Keep walking, you'll figure it out. And, you know, I kept, like, talking to myself because it was just eerily quiet on this trail. And he kept telling me, stop talking. Close your mouth and just listen. Just listen. And, you know, by the time I actually got out of the trail, I had collected more than enough rocks, by the way. But by the time I got out of the trail, I realized that the burned ground, usually when a park or, you know, some other authority burns the ground, it's to renew it. It's for the sake of renewal. Like, there was disease running through the roots of the plants, or, you know, some kind of insect got in and just totally infested that area. It's to renew the land. And the fact that it ran the entire way that I had walked with this guy the last time I was there with him, like, it went through that gateway. The ground under the gateway was black. It dawned on me that having gone through the process of picking out stones to make my own medicine wheel, to make my own healing circle, and going back to this place that ended up being a very sore memory for me, it was a healing exercise. That I was basically being allowed to burn myself up and start again without any of the, you know, ailments and diseases and infestations that this guy and what he did to me. Like, just starting over without any of that. And, you know, he is in Kokopelli. He did not explain this to me because he needed me to figure it out. He wanted me to figure it out, which is another trickster energy. Kokopelli is very much a god of intellect as well. He hoards knowledge, and he a lot of times is very stingy with it. which goes back to the trickster energy. So just having gone through that whole experience with him, I mean, he was walking with me the whole time. He didn't say much, because he was encouraging me to be silent and just listen. But, you know, he was walking with me the whole time. And I remember one tree in particular. All around the base of it were just natural, rough obsidian crystals. I mean, I grabbed a bunch of them that were like this big, but I did manage to get a couple of really nice big chunks of it. And I left an offering of tobacco all around the roots of that tree, and it felt so freeing, because I hadn't done anything like this for a very, very long time. So in essence, I'm basically, you know, getting back into who I was and what is important to me, what works for me. And it's going to be a long process. I can already tell it's going to be a long process, but I think it's going to be worth it. So, yeah, those are the two most recent Kokopelli experiences. Like I said, he's not exactly upfront about things, which is that trickster side of him. He likes to make you take the long way around, so that way you can see the beauty of the path, basically. So the next video that I have planned is actually sort of an altar tour, but it's not. I'm not showing you guys my altar. I'm actually going to be doing that for the 2018 YouTube Pagan Challenge. But I wanted to show you guys what is in my violin case, because it is a very integral part of my spiritual path and working with my deity. So I will try to get that filmed today, and if I don't see you guys, you know, before, I will see you in 2018. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Namaste and blessed be.